All right, everyone. I think we are all here. So welcome to our Food Prize University panel. Tonight, I'm super excited. We have an incredible panel for you guys. We're going to be talking about how to add extra revenue to your business through packaged food products. And we've got an incredible group of folks that are going to be talking to you about that. But first, before I do anything, we always love to do a big shout out to the sponsors who help us make events like this possible. So a big thank you to Allen Energy Group, to Karen and Cassidy Phillips, Coca-Cola, The Cottage, Eagle Distributing, Elizabeth and Alex Kennedy, Gregory and Heidi Kallenberg, the Polyak Group at Morgan Stanley, the Remington Hotel and Suites, Rosestone Wealth Advisors, and the Rosslyn Charitable Foundation. Thank you again. We couldn't do it without you, and we love you to death. Now, that being said, I don't want to waste any time, and I'm going to go ahead and bring our panelists on up to the screen. Here we go. Gotta love a good Zoom. And tonight is my pleasure to have with me Travis Ray, Jim Vallone, and Michelle Breyer. Would you guys like to go ahead and maybe give a quick introduction, introduce yourselves, and let folks know who you are and a little bit about you? Michelle, would you like to start?
Definitely. Am I on video? It says my video is stopped. I'm just making sure.
You are on video.
Okay, wonderful.
You gotta love it, right?
Yeah, I am the technically challenged queen of any Zoom call. My name is Michelle Breyer, and I am the Chief Operating Officer at SKU, which is the nation's first CPG accelerator. And we are based here in beautiful Austin, Texas.
All right, Jim or Travis?
Travis.
All right, I'm Travis Ray. I am the Vice President of Growth Marketing and Culinary and Experience at Brava. And we built an oven that cooks with infrared light. But I've spent a lot of my career both working in restaurants, and I spent almost a decade at Williams-Sonoma corporate, running the food development team there, and have launched over 800 unique food products for the Williams-Sonoma brand.
And I'm Jim Vallone, and I'm with Copac Solution, and I've manufactured and packaged food for national retailers around the nation and internationally. Everything from food development to packaging development to brand management on their food, and a lot of them come down to chefs that have an offering at their bakery and they want to have that home experience too. So I've been working on things like that for about the past 15 or 16 years. And now we're continuing on with Copac Solution.
Awesome. Well, we're going to jump right into it because I know I have a lot of questions and we have a lot of folks, attendees. While y'all are watching, please feel free. There's a Q&A section down at the bottom. Make sure to drop questions there. And we're going to do about 40 minutes of discussion, and then we'll open it up for questions from those of you who are watching. So I'm going to kick it off. Look, I mean, I think we can't avoid talking about this past year with the pandemic, right? So we're going to get it out of the way first. But we've seen so many restaurants and foods business completely change their business model, right? I mean, some have adapted their menus to make it more easy to do takeout. Others have done take and bake or even created pantries that people could buy. You know, all three of you I know have been watching trends, kind of getting products to market as well. So what have you seen in this past year that has maybe kind of inspired you or even surprised you?
Go ahead.
It's funny because I was just talking to the owner earlier today, but I first started talking to John Darsky of Del Popolo Pizzeria. At least it was almost a year ago. It was sometime during the pandemic, and I would call 2020 the year of the pivot. And so Del Popolo actually started as a food truck serving wood-fired, Neapolitan-style pizza. And I forgot the year. It may have been 2019 where they opened their first brick and mortar restaurant. And not long after, the pandemic hit. And so what John and his team did was pivoted to selling frozen car cooked Neapolitan style pizzas that were actually fired in their wood oven. So you're able to sort of replicate that flavor of a wood-fired pizza with the blistering and the leopard spots and char, but able to do that in a home oven. And I think we've seen a number of other pizzerias, both in the Bay Area, but across the nation, kind of do the same thing. And so I thought it was just really, really innovative of them and a natural progression to take something that you think you might not be able to make at home, but through the circumstances that we were all in, they were forced to innovate and figure out a way of doing wood-fired pizza that you could make at home without a wood-fired oven. And just today, he told me that today was his launch in all 7 of the Whole Foods that are in San Francisco. And so I think that's a very promising sign for that kind of pivot. And hopefully we're going to do something with them too.
Awesome. Sounded like you had something to add too, Michelle.
I will just say that we saw a surprising number of companies that were involved with our cohort who had higher than expected revenues. Some of them were kind of comfort foods. Some of them were better for you, types of foods, whether that's grain-free or plant-based. And a lot of that, I think, came from the fact that people wanted to take care of themselves. There was a kind of a increased desire to really focus on health. And a lot of that was health in your diet. So, really did see, it was kind of counterintuitive to say that people were kind of blowing their projections out of the water, but that was happening with some companies. So it was kind of a silver lining to what was, really obviously a very devastating, series of events.
Jim, what about you? I know you've kind of been on the production side of things at Copac Solutions. Was there anything that kind of, inspired you or surprised you?
Well, it didn't surprise us that when in March, a lot of our national retailers that we had developed programs for dropped them, which made perfect sense. But the surprising part was the whiplash effect on how the online presence of those baking mixes exploded. And people went to online because they were trapped at home and they got tired of the same old. And, you can only have, delivery so many times of you're going to want to eventually do something with your family. So we found a lot of people were trying new things and baking, and anything that you could bake was just a run. And I know that we all experienced the shortage of yeast.
Yeah.
Which, there was a lot of really, being a manufacturer, the shortage issues, which are even worse now, but was just surprising. But it just seemed like everybody turned to home and hearth. And it seems like it keeps going because now people have, no pun intended, their appetite's been whetted for something new and different. And now they're all about it. They're not as scared, to try new things like with Travis's oven, to try a new way to cook with light. I think people are always looking for something new and innovative and easier to do. And it kind of gave them the permission to do so because they really had nothing else to do, a lot of people with their time. So it turned us to kind of a necessity and a pleasure at the same time.
Got it. Kind of looking at the past year, before we kind of jump in, do you feel like maybe there were some missed opportunities for folks? Is there like maybe something that could have been done? I don't know if I'm like asking that in the right way, but were there missed opportunities this past year? As you look at the market, as you look at where things have been heading, do you think there's a place that maybe still has a need to be filled?
I think there's always a place that needs to be filled. I think that's why we're here. I think, we take nothing and then make it something and sell it. So that's all part of the creativity. So I always think there is an improvement. I think it made a lot of us think what we could do better. I often think I wish I had invested in Perel, but then again, basically I think people now are definitely looking at what they've learned from the experience. But as far as something that could have been missed, I don't know if anybody could have prepared for it. I think everybody had to do what they expected. And I think we learned a lot though from it and how to move forward.
You know, Michelle, you talked about a little bit of this focus on health, people kind of taking care of themselves. What are some other trends you've been seeing? And, you know, and this can go to all of you, but we'll start with Michelle. Any trends that you've been seeing and maybe predictions for other types of products, food products that the home cook might be looking for or might be interested in?
Gosh, it's such a tough one. We're seeing, you know, in terms of overall trends, some of these, you know, are I think being driven, or they were starting, but definitely were, you know, accelerated. We saw a lot of growth in cocktail mixes. You know, people, you know, whether that's Bloody Mary mix or, you know, different kind of upscale tonics and things like that. You know, again, that kind of comfort type of food, not necessarily better for you, but definitely comfort. And, you know, definitely some of the functional types of foods, like functional mushrooms, we saw for sure, and adaptogens and, you know, those types of products. You know, everything seems to be moving grain-free and gluten-free. You know, those are definitely the big trends that out of all of the people who apply to us, I feel like a good majority, whether they're doing a plant-based ice cream or they're doing a grain-free cracker that uses banana flour, just very innovative, taking something and putting a new twist on it that may be more eco-friendly, that is healthier for you. I mean, people are finding new innovative ways to make food that you would not have thought of, and that is new and innovative.
What about you, Travis? I mean, I know you do a lot with like the home cook. What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, ours was a similar, but a little bit different. I'd say similar in the sense that, I mean, comfort food just popped for us. I would say that it always does, but it especially did during the COVID time. Another thing that we saw and that we leaned into was trying to replicate takeout dishes at home, because a lot of restaurants were either closed or people were too worried to go out to eat, but they still wanted that variety in their lives that they might have gotten from going out before. And so we really just tried to make it easier for them to make some of those very classic sort of takeout dishes like orange chicken or sesame beef or things like that at home in an uncomplicated way. So I think there's always going to be room for those sort of comfort classics. And it's a little different because we don't do we don't sell CPG food. But I would say if you wanted to apply that to a CPG food perspective, doing sauces like sesame chicken sauce and some of these things that can make a takeout dish, or that to bring that experience that you normally get out, but to bring it into the home and to make it easy for people is all.
What about you, Jim? Are you seeing something similar to that?
Well, to echo the health options, there's also the other parallel, which we're still seeing a lot of decadent, but we're also seeing like vegan options for decadent, and also small foods, small mini donuts, mini cupcakes, anything that could be small. We're seeing a comeback, and anything you can play with your food. Those kind of kits make it fun. We're seeing that go in. We're seeing, again, more mixes with bread mixes and cookies. A lot of desserts are still very, very popular, and donuts seem to be spiking too right now. It seems like people want to be able to have to where if they make their donut, they can make it with a vegan milk, and with an egg replacement, maybe they use a crushed flaxseed or something different, but it gives them those options. So we're finding a lot of retailers want to have those decadent options, but still try to put a flair into it, a vegan or possibly a non-GMO. But it really comes down to, even like the cocktails, it comes down to what the ingredients are. And, organic is really gigantic still. And I think that's going to keep going strong along with vegan or vegan, however you say it properly.
Can I just jump in and say that it's really kind of sadistic to have this right at dinner time, because like everything everybody is saying is like making my mouth water. It's like, oh my God, like macaroni and cheese and pizza and all this stuff. So I just wanted to add that.
Well, the cocktail mix kind of made my ears hurt.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so we kind of talked about like some kind of trends that y'all are seeing out there right now. Let's say it's someone's first kind of foray into doing some sort of packaged food. Like, what are some considerations? And I know you kind of each have come at this from very different angles. You know, like Travis, you've kind of been in the development side. Michelle, I know you're helping people kind of really grow that business. Like, they have the product now, how do we get it to keep going? And Jim, I know that you're working with people to actually develop the mix. So I'm sure you each have a different perspective on it. Maybe we'll start with you, Travis, since maybe you're kind of more on the concept side. Like, for someone first getting into it, like what are some considerations a chef, a food product person, a food business person should kind of keep in mind or consider?
It's a great question. A couple of answers, honestly. And this is like just full transparency, honesty. My first question to people would be like, why are you doing it? What are you hoping to get out of it? And is it just because your neighbor or a friend told you that something was good that you made and you see that opportunity, or is there something a little bit bigger? And I think it's important to really examine that, because going into food production, especially in a CPG marketplace, is very competitive. And I think you have to make sure that your heart's in it for the long haul, and that you're willing to do the work. So if you get past that hurdle, some people won't, and that's fine. If that's the case, run the other direction. If you get past that hurdle and it's still something that you are compelled to do, I would say one of the most important things to me that I've learned over the last, I guess, 20 or so years is story is almost as important, if not more important, than the product itself. People want to know where it came from or where the idea came from. I think they're less worried about authenticity, and more not worried, but more concerned with it being a personal story and having something personal to the maker, and something differentiating about it. And like Jim was talking about, that could be something like you do a classic recipe, but you make it vegan or you make it gluten-free. But I would have some kind of angle that makes either your story better, ideally both the product and the story better. Because the story is what's going to get you in the door. The story is what's going to sell it to the people that are either at Whole Foods or the grocery store or wherever those outlets are that you're trying to sell your product. And so there's a lot of people that have great products and great recipes. And if you're not able to tell your story well, you're not going to be able to get past the first and most important gate. I mean, I would always say like flavor, quality, and all those things I consider like a given. Like, it has to be an outstanding product. It has to be, I would say, for most people, as few ingredients as possible, but with the most flavor impact. And it has to be something unique. But humans are storytellers, and I think that goes into the products that we all love and enjoy on a daily basis. The other thing has to do with financial stability and what kind of product you're producing. If I were to launch my own product, I would try to be thinking of a product that somebody's going to use every single day. I would not be going in for myself to develop, let's say, a rare like truffle vinegar that somebody's going to use once in a blue moon, because it's going to be really hard to keep the sales up. If you can find something that somebody uses either regularly or ideally on a daily basis, that can become part of their routine, that can become part of something that they no longer even think about, it's just there. I'll use a product that surprised me from the Fancy Food Show in 2020 was the Laird's Superfood Creamer for coffee. Because I had used, like, I'd done butter coffee for a while, but it had this one little aspect of like this turmeric addition to it that made it a kind of functional product. And I tested it or tasted it at the fancy food show. I've used it every single day since then. And it's a beautiful, like, it's taken me a while to think about why I love the product so much, but he got in on the right. Coffee, it's an everyday thing. He made it functional. He made a couple of different flavors, and he made it appeal. He made it vegan. He made it appeal to a wide range of people. And like, for me personally, I don't care that it's vegan or not, but it's very prominent on his packaging. That wasn't a selling point for me, but it certainly is a selling point for a lot of people. For me, it was more just about functional coffee that has a little bit of an extra boost from some healthy fats in it in the morning. And I like the flavor. It was really that simple. And he kind of won from me like a lifetime customer out of it. But that's really where I'm drawing my example, is like, if you can tap into some of those daily routines, whether that be coffee or tea or snack time or cocktails, even, you know, it's a maybe that's not a daily thing, but it's a regular thing. And so
May not be a daily thing for you, but
those are going to be
No.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
chances of success. But I would say that that's my initial advice. There are plenty of examples of great products that don't fit into that mold that I'm talking about. But what I'm saying is that I think that's one of the safest bets in terms of where I would be putting my money first, and experimenting in some of these areas and categories.
Got it. What about you, Michelle? I mean, it seems like I know you and I spoke earlier, and we had talked about, you know, how you've had products in front of you, and sometimes like everything's great about the product, right? It's like gorgeous packaging, great story, marketing, and then like everyone took a bite and kind of spit in a napkin. So obviously we don't need to like taste great, but what about you for like someone like kind of making that foray in?
Well, you know, it's interesting. And I know that a lot of the people in this audience are people who may have, you know, be cooking something, have a restaurant, something where they want to commercialize it. And we actually had a really interesting company in one of our 2 tracks ago, and they had a chain of restaurants, smoothie bars, you know, places to get smoothies. And they wanted to bring a CPG to market. And the key for them, and this is what really made it's been very successful. They've gotten into, you know, a lot of HEBs and Whole Foods. It wasn't, you know, there are other acai bowls on the market, but they found a creative way of, number one, beautiful marketing, wonderful story. Like their 2 best friends who you know, saw these acai bowls in Hawaii and then brought that back to Austin and opened restaurants, and just a beautiful story. The product tastes amazing. And then they found an interesting use case that was beyond what, you know, like they made it kind of a breakfast food. They found out where they saw the hole, and that's where they went. And it was that combination of things. Number one, their products taste amazing. Like when they brought them by SKU, when they were applying, they had them in like really kind of, you know, styrofoam cups. And, you know, it wasn't like, it was very bare bones. But when we took a spoonful, it was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So, you know, first and foremost, your product has to taste great. I agree with, you know, everything that Travis said, but it also, you have to find that use case, how people would use it. That is, you know, where there's some white space in the market. You don't want to be a Me Too product. So, you know, to your point, it's not enough that all your friends and family love it. You've got to find, you know, where that key target consumer is, and then, you know, have some idea of how you're going to get there. And that target has to be beyond your friends and family, you know? But yeah, I still think there's a ton of space in the market for innovative products, even like in the sparkling water category. We had a company that came out with a different spin on it. And you know, their cans were gorgeous and the flavors were interesting and different, and they are blowing it out of the water. I mean, they're everywhere now, and like in less than a year or barely a year. So I don't think that you can look at a category and say it's too crowded for me, because there's always room for some innovation. Like to your point about creamer, they found something different in the creamer category, and you know, have been very successful. So I don't know if that answers your question, but anyway, I filled a lot of time babbling here.
All right, Jim, your turn.
I totally agree with both Travis and Michelle. It's definitely story. It's definitely knowing that it has really good flavor and it has legs. When the rubber meets the road is when it comes to manufacturing. And then you have to look at it like building a house. You have to look at your expenses. You have to look at what your channel is going to be. You have to be able to look at shelf life, and you have to be able to look at cost and how your cost is going to compare to others in the marketplace. So if you have, like Travis mentioned, a crazy ingredient, like Kona coffee, for example. I developed a Kona coffee ice cream. I had no idea Kona coffee was so crazy, but it completely made it to where it wasn't something that would make the marketplace. So you have to first look at your cost of your materials to make your formulation. And then the most important after that is your retail packaging, because you have usually with the retail packaging, if you're going to get it printed and have an imprinted box or a bag, you're going to want to have at least 2,500 to print at a time or your cost goes ballistic. So you have to look at all that. So you need to kind of do an outline of everything you need to cover and make sure you have, you know, it aligned properly. And that's how you bring it to market. You can look at shelf lives too. Usually with a baking mix, it's 12 to 18 month shelf life. With a spice mix, it can go up to 2 years, depending on your things. So you can look at that too as well. And then it comes down to co-packing. Are you going to do it yourself? Are you going to do small batches? How are you going to manage that? Because nowadays with co-packers, some of them, the most minimum order, and Travis can relate to this sure, is 10,000 pounds. So they want a 10,000 pound based per formulation. So you have to find someone that's maybe a boutique, like what we do is we try to stick around 2,500 pounds to help. Our mission basically is to take small businesses that want to get product to the marketplace and help them get there, you know? What did you say?
There's a cat, if you're wondering what that sounded.
So basically it comes down to knowing what the cost is going to be and have expectations. And besides that, on a side note, get some thick skin. I've done a lot of food shows and you have people that will spit your product out that other people love. Everybody's got an opinion. So you have to be able to, like Travis was saying, really love your product and want to stay focused on it. And also be willing to listen to maybe there's more economical, viable ways that it could be done. So you really want to find someone that you can partner with that's going to be doing your co-packing and your production. But your packaging is really where a lot of cost will go. That's why you see a lot of startups doing like a craft tin tie bag or a simple box and they label it. So you have to be realistic. You know, sometimes people, I had a customer that wanted to do a drink mix in one of this fantastic shaped bottle. And it's like, well, that's a 20,000 impression, you know, order, and you can't just order 2,500. So it's all about knowing what your marketing is, your branding is, and sticking to that. So that's important too, knowing what your branding is, like going as far down as your logo specifications, the fonts you use, your storyline. Story should be on packaging. Travis is 100% correct. That's what sells products and gets that romance that people want to be a part of it. But basically my main over focus is know what your costs are, know what you're going to be into, and how much are you willing to do, because you can blend it yourself and you can pouch it yourself to start off and then go from there, and then maybe go to small like food shows, like Atlanta food show, or the small temporary ones, and rent a booth and go that way to test it too and do some sampling.
Well, it really quick. It's interesting because Siete, when they first came out with their chips, they had them in basically Ziploc baggies that they would take, they would take around to the food co-ops, and people loved them. And I mean, that may be too bare bones packaging, but hey, it worked for them at the time.
Sometimes that's a
That's
plus.
like a great sign, you know? I mean, like that's kind
Yeah,
of encouraging, you know, if you've
yeah,
got a great
exactly.
product, you know, start there.
Sometimes
That's
it can be-
confidence in your product to walk around with a Ziploc bag and say, here, try this.
Yeah.
Where they get the sense that it's truly handmade like that can be a good thing.
Yeah, that's a good point.
At least to start. It doesn't mean that you're going to go into Whole Foods with a Ziploc.
Yeah.
but that's how these things start. It's like, and when you start to get that kind of buzz, it's important to balance the sort of long-term vision with the kind of hype that you're getting right now. And I don't think there's any one specific formula to follow to make it work. But I would tell people to try and look like 5 to 10 years into the future and ask themselves, what do you want people to be saying about this product? Who do you want to be eating this product?
Exactly.
And you have to kind of work back from there. Like, do you want this product in every household in the United States? Do you have a product that you just, that you want for a very niche audience? They're very different approaches to how you would go after the niche. I mean, is like the hot sauce category. Like, you're automatically knocking out 75% of the market right there, because they don't care about hot sauce. But for the 25% or whatever that do, you may be able to do some really cool stuff. And the other approach would be like, well, I want to get it in as many hands and as possible. So I would, there you got to start thinking about, how do I make something that a lot of people are going to like, but how do I also stay true to what I'm trying to do and not water it down and not make it, that can't be like your goal, I guess. Like, your goal should be to make people happy, but not try and make everybody happy. That's the other thing. Like, it's okay if you're a little bit polarizing, because the true fans are going to find it and they're going to love it. They're going to talk about it.
That's interesting you said that, because we're having, a big boom in cricket protein, which I don't know whether all you guys are probably seeing that. And some people are saying having that in your branding may be a horrible thing, because people aren't going to pick up cricket protein. Another part is saying, well, that's kind of the appeal, that it's new and different. I don't know, that's a trend we're seeing definitely, is bug protein.
I just saw a whole thing on dishes to make with Acadia, because of all the Acadias that are coming around. This guy went through like 6 different recipes on how to cook them. I guess they're delicious.
Well, they're high protein, but yeah, to the branding standpoint, like, if it only appeals to a small number, but those people are super passionate about it, does that is that the right approach, or do you hide the fact that it has that in it? I don't know. That was more of just a question, as it's a specific brand that we're working with right now where that's come up.
You should call it Don't Bug Me.
Hey,
I'll be here all week.
Yeah. Hey, that's a free one from you. Yeah.
I said plenty, so you better get your questions in.
Yeah.
So with kind of some of these things that we've kind of been talking about, like, is there a way that maybe someone that's like kind of thinking about it, is there a way to like maybe do like a soft entry, like kind of dip your toe in, like kind of a way to test the waters? Or is this kind of a like, you just got to hold your nose and jump kind of vibe?
I think it depends on sort of your current setup. And let's say if you're running a restaurant and you want to test out selling your salsa for people to take home and to go, I think that's a natural sort of progression that makes sense. If you are if you're making jam and you just want to get into the jam market, you better damn well have a great story and something to tell people, because it's already very crowded. And I've worked with a jam maker that I helped bring into Williams-Sonoma, who had an outstanding product. And it wasn't just her jam, it was the fact that she made curds in a way that nobody else was doing at the time, and that they tasted real. And so that's really what got my attention. And so is to really think about like how are you going to capture somebody's attention and surprise and delight them very quickly and make them and solve a problem too. Like the thing with the curds is that's a pain in the ass to make at home. And so it's trying to find products like that too. Even jam, with the same thing, but there's just a lot of options out there. So it really depends on how saturated the market is, and it depends on where your position is. If you've already got fans, like a let's call it a popular Mexican restaurant, you're probably going to do pretty well by merchandising and selling some of your things to go. But if you're just out of nowhere trying to start from nothing, the story is even more important. So it really kind of depends on the stage at which your business is in and what product you're trying to sell.
I totally agree. I think you could even, sometimes these people start in a, farmer's market or flea market, getting their products on there, but it has to, again, it goes back to story, and it does depend on where you're at, your location, and what channels you have available to you. For example, like down here, Publix works with, local manufacturers of food or people that create food products that go in their store. But a lot of those steps, you have to have, food safety certifications as well. So it really depends on your capital, what you're going to put into it, and your plan to get it out there. That's why those shows and even flea markets, things that are local or produce stands, could be kind of a good place to start too. It's a little bit easier to get a read on that, depending on the product.
Like a built-in test market, essentially.
Yeah.
I would say too, one thing that we learned at Williams-Sonoma was if you can give the end user some kind of interactivity with the product where it's not just consuming the product itself, but for example, a baking mix, like what Jim produces, you're making it just easier for them to make a baked good at home, but they still have to do a little bit of work. And I think that little bit of work can actually pay dividends a lot down the road, because there's a feeling that the user gets of actually creating it, and even if they're just finishing it or doing something, they still had a part in it, as opposed to just opening a bag of chips, for example. And so I think those products, whether it's a cooking sauce or a finishing sauce or a baking mix, where you're helping to streamline the process, but making it a little bit easier, but still letting them be an active participant in the creation of the final product, is you're going to have easier adoption, and because they're invested at that point, they put effort and energy into it, and they want it to be good.
And you made it look like a star too, because they made the most beautiful bun cake in the entire universe, and they get to, sit and talk to their friends and look what I made, and it's a Meyer lemon, and it gives them that narrative. And again, it comes down to story. It's going to let them be a superstar, because when you get a box of cookie mix and every single cookie is perfect, you feel like you are just the ultimate baker. And that's what it's all about. It's that feeling and being able to deliver on that.
So let's kind of look on the other side. I mean, we kind of touched on it a little bit, but what are some of the, if you kind of like group it, maybe some of the challenges? Like, I mean, I know we've talked around them a little bit, but if you're trying to get your product to market, I mean, obviously capital is something that you're going to need depending on the scale of it. Are there other challenges that folks should be looking at, maybe common mistakes or common pitfalls that you've seen where people have maybe gotten really gung-ho about a product and then like, oops, I maybe didn't think about X, Y, Z?
One of the things that we see with quite a few companies going through SKU, there's one whole class that's all about labeling and packaging, and they don't often realize what they actually can and can't say on their label. And there's just this assumption. I mean, legally, there are so many rules about what is allowable. And that can be a huge stumbling block. You're laughing because you probably have seen people run into that. I think that's a big one. you can't just say better, like better for you, even things like that. You've got to be able to defend what you're saying. And, marketing speak isn't always legal. And also the other big, challenge, which I think some people realize, but some people don't, is how difficult it is to get in front of buyers and to get those buyers to want to stock your products. I think there's some trends that have made it a little bit easier. We just did a big town hall kind of virtual event on some of these retailers that are increasingly wanting to bring in more emerging brands. Like they're actively going after them and making them a huge part of their product mix. But some of the big supermarkets, it can be really, really hard to get those meetings with the buyers. And then once you get the meeting to, they're going to have to move something else aside to put yours there. So what are they going to move aside? And that's challenging.
Yeah, right. And right now, just to piggyback on the back of that, is a slotting fee in Kroger right now is $90,000 per SKU. So my question is, how does anybody make any money? And pretty much it's an advertisement for a long time. And also to go on to again, with what you're saying about labeling, I had a customer that came in with a product that she was already selling, and she was able to get into a local display for a grocery store. And I was looking and I thought, wow, it's amazing. You've got the non-GMO butterfly logo on that. Did it take you long to get that certification? She goes, no, I downloaded it from the internet.
Oh my God.
I know, exactly. So at that point, after the defibrillator was brought out, but you're right, Michelle, to say people really have no idea what it takes to protect themselves on it. And there are attorneys that their full-time job is to sue people because they say, my client was injured because it wasn't all natural or whatever you want to say. And they make a lot of money on that because there's blood in the water, because it's actually profitable. So you really got to be careful. That's why, again, if you partner with the right people, they'll protect you and they'll guide you into the right way to go about it.
And I would add on to that and just say, for those that are trying to get in front of buyers, don't give up. Don't take no for an answer, but be very thoughtful about how you choose your second, third, and fourth approaches. And I think, we'll get personal in this one. Jim is a master at this. The reason, though, I say that because when I first started working with Jim, I was busy. I had a lot of different things going on. And frankly, I didn't think I had a problem. I had a good baking mix supplier, and I didn't think that I needed to be looking elsewhere. But Jim was persistent. And I think the thing that got me was eventually him just saying, I'm coming into your office and I would like to meet with you, and I'm going to bring baked stuff for you to taste. And a lot of people won't be that persistent, but the minute that I tasted, I think it was the coffee cake, I was like, whoa, this is incredible. And my mind changed right then and there. And it's been one of the best lessons for me as a buyer. I used to be I guess sort of a buyer, but product developer and somebody who's choosing different things, is to give people their time to explain. But coming from that perspective, I would say to people who are pitching, don't give up, but make sure that if you get a no the first time, that you think pretty creatively about how you're going to approach it the second and third time. Because again, that's part of the story. Like, I remember this 15, almost 20 years later, how Jim did this. And I've always really respected him for it, because he didn't take no for an answer and he didn't give up. And he made me sit down and taste the product. And at that point, the product spoke for itself. So you're going to get a lot of no's. And like Jim said earlier, you better get a thick skin. You're going to get a lot of doors shut in your face, and you're going to get a lot of people that say, I'm busy, I don't have time. Cool. Then you need to have backup plan A, backup plan B, and backup plan C to really kind of show them what you're all about, and and explain to them in a different way how your product might be able to set them apart and what your capabilities might be. You know, they may not like your product exactly as it is. So are you willing to change it? Are you willing to do anything different to it? Like, that's an important thing too. If it's an old family recipe, you may say, hell no, and this is the way it is. And so be it, that's fine. But some other people might say, well, I want to take the salt down 15%. And you know, you might be like, well, that's no big deal to me. So just don't give up. Be persistent and don't give up.
Don't you think there's an unrealistic idea that all these hot brands out there are overnight successes? Because I think
Absolutely. Yeah.
there's probably like they're a 5-10 year overnight success, you know, like in a lot of cases. And I think a lot of founders it may not understand that it's going to be a little bit of a journey.
Well, I don't think there's a harder working group of people. The people in food service and the food industry and people that create and cook for people. It's hot, it's sweaty, it's uncomfortable. A lot goes into it. And I think you have to, that's how you're built. And that's, you have to approach the same thing when you're trying to get your product launched. Is like you said, just keep going, stay grounded, and you have to really get some thick skin, but you have to believe in your product. 100%.
That is the most important thing, honestly, Jim. And what I've found in my career too is I've done the best job when I believed in the product, either that I'm creating or the product that I'm selling. And there's levels to that too. There's the level of like, yeah, I might use this on a special occasion, or you know, yeah, this is great for an indulgence, or I would feed this to my family every day, or I've got to have this like right now. And all of those are different sort of levels in believing in the product. But if you believe in it and you can speak to it authentically, that's going to come across when you pitch it. If you don't believe in it, and that's kind of what I was saying earlier in the warning, that initial phase of like, you better really assess whether you're into this or not. Like, you have to believe in it in your bones. And if you don't, it's probably not the right thing to do. Like, there has to be a problem that itch you're willing to scratch until, regardless of whether people tell you no or get lost, that belief in the product is what's going to carry you through those hard times. But it's also going to be what help you effectively pitch it and narrow in on its value proposition, and really be able to communicate to people what it is and why it's special. But if you don't really live it and breathe it and believe in it, they're gonna, I mean, I feel like I can smell that a million miles away. And I'll use an example. Like, I worked for an e-commerce snack company, and I knew I could develop the product. And I thought it was a great product, but at the end of the day, I don't really snack. I don't like snacking. And so I found like it was hard for me to get super jazzed about it, because at the end of the day, I felt like it wasn't my lifestyle. And so that's a luxury to find that fit, right? Not everybody's going to be able to find that fit, but if you can find that fit, that's what you should be seeking, because I think you're going to do your best job.
So I do have a couple of questions that have come in. Let's see, this first one, Michelle, I think this one's for you. So they ask, because you work at an accelerator, are there risks to growing too quickly? I love how optimistic that is.
I actually, that's a really good question. And I've seen a couple of examples of this, of companies, one in particular. Yes, number one, yes, there are big dangers of growing too quickly. There was a company in Austin, she had a bakery. She's had these amazing cookies. She got a huge order from Southwest Airlines. Yay, big order from Southwest Airlines. It put her out of business because she didn't have the infrastructure in place. She didn't have the money the cash flow to support the huge inventory she was going to have to create to service Southwest. And I've seen that happen many times. People get into Target, they get into Walmart. They don't understand that the first part of that is, I don't want to say the easiest, but keeping it on the shelves can be difficult. It's expensive. you have to do marketing to support it. And
And
so
the
you've got,
chargeback too.
yeah, if they take back your product,
Yep.
you know, you've just got to go into it knowing every possible scenario. You've got to have, whether it's debt financing, whether it's you've raised money, you've got to have the money there to support that growth. You know, sometimes it's much better to focus on a, you know, maybe one retailer and just do that really well and not try to like take on, you know, the whole country, because you're gonna have a much bigger likelihood that that may not go well, and it may hurt you from having done really well maybe regionally initially. Or yeah, so the bottom line is, yes, there are dangers to growing quickly. I know that I just went on and on about that, but I feel strongly about it because I've seen examples, and I think
I would
people can be
imagine.
naive. Yeah.
And let's see, another one's come through. It sounds like kind of based off that, but do you think it's better to sell directly to the customer, or is it better to try and work with with a business? It's like business to consumer or business to business, or does it matter? Is it more of a, I guess, personal choice, or what your goals are?
Like for Jim or for?
Oh, for whoever would like to take it. I mean, I'm sure there's different answers that all of you have, so please.
Yeah, I'd love to hear what Jim has to say, because didn't you sell, like, from somebody who sold probably direct and also in retail? I'd love to hear your perspectives.
Well, if you look at 2020, internet was probably the best direct to customer. I know that Etsy and a lot of places like different channels like that did really well. But it all depends, again, on what your product is, what the shelf life is, what's the utilization. I think a good way to start, though, could be direct to customer from a website. I think nowadays, you know, you can pretty much build a website in 15 minutes with some of these templates that are out there and see how it goes and test your product that way. Again, talking to Michelle, knowing your focus and where you want to sell, that goes back to your plan. What is your plan? Where do you want it to be? And that really will dictate what channels you use. But it's always going to be, depending on your manufacturing and what you can handle, it's always nice to have, you know, a national account that wants to carry your product. But then again, you have to look at the balance of that. If you have one national account and it does 80% of your business, and then you have other ones that do 20%, that national account goes away, you're left with a big hole. So you want to really diversify your channels. So my whole thing would be all of the above. I would try it in every channel possible, but I think to control your own destiny, make your own packaging, blend up your blends, package it, and sell it yourself online or at local areas. Like Travis was talking about, a local Mexican restaurant or a local farm stand, like that would be a good place to start as well. So again, it just depends on what your focus is, but you could blow things out on the web too, direct to customer. But also, like if you get into Amazon and places like that, realize that they take like 70 to 75% profit on that. So really, when you work with those, I guess it depends on how much of your soul you want to sell to get your product into a place. I guess that, you know what I'm talking about. And so you have to,
We've gone there.
yeah, exactly. So, you know, if you want to really control it and you can do it, manage it yourself, or start something on the side that can be managed. That could be a pet project. But if you're looking for someone else to do turnkey, that's going to be a whole financially different setup.
I will say that D2C, your margins are going to be the highest of any place you sell. And so that if you have a product that plays into being able to sell online, that's always a good thing to have in addition to everything else.
Totally agree. Yeah.
I love D2C for the exact reason that Michelle just said. Like the margins are going to be better, and you cut out the middleman, and you don't have to. I mean, in terms of headache or negotiations and legal agreements and all sorts of other stuff, it's a lot more streamlined to go D2C. But it really depends on the price point of your product, and it really depends on your target audience. Is your target audience online? Are they consuming social media? If they are, then you might have a good chance. If they're not, you may not do so well. And I would say that the higher the price point, the more likely your success, or the easier your success may be in D2C versus a lower price point item, where you may do better by getting it out in front of more eyes quickly, and partnering with Targets and the Williams Sonomas and other people of the world. Like when I went to Brava, we don't sell through any other real channels except for our own. And I think that's been great. It's been a huge advantage to us. And frankly, we didn't have the margin to give to anybody else. And it's made a lot of decisions easier, where I don't have to worry about that. But, you know, again, you know, one of the other companies that I look at that I think has done a great job, that seems to be like almost an overnight success, but I'm sure they're not, is like that Truff hot sauce. Those guys from a D2C perspective are so smart and have done an amazing job with branding and with sending the product out to the right influencers and getting it in the right hands of celebrities, and hiring a great social media manager to make a page that looks consistent and beautiful and have this element of like of FOMO, fear of missing out, that's kind of palpable. But not everybody can do that. And I think part of, you know, I don't even think every hot sauce brand can do that, but I bet you Truff can do it because their price point's a little bit higher. It's a little bit unique and it's kind of more niche. And it's capitalizing on two sort of growing trends of both hot sauce and sort of truffle stuff. So I think they did a really, really good job. But again, if you have a lower price point, you know, $5-10 item, it may be a lot more difficult to do that due to the shipping costs and other things that may knock you out of the DTC thing altogether. It may be more expensive to ship that product than it is to even get the product itself. So price point, I think in that sense really does matter. And how many eyes you want to, I mean, are you going for a volume play, or are you going for penetration of market? Like it just depends.
Well, we have time for one last question. So we'll do a lightning round, and this one should be very easy because I want to go out with something fun. I'm curious for all three of you, what is your favorite food product that you like find you can't get enough of right now?
Oh my gosh.
I know, sorry, no pressure.
Oh, man. Oh, I know. I have two.
Okay, go for
the
it.
Laird Superfood Creamer.
Mm-hmm.
And the other product that I think has just done a phenomenal job marketing and getting the buzz out on capitalizing on a trend is the Fly by Jing Chili Crisp.
Mm.
Ooh. Mm-hmm.
Their marketing is on point. They're running ads on Facebook and Instagram out the wazoo, and like there's other chili crisp choices, but somehow they have positioned themselves as like the OG chili crisp sauce, and I'm not sure I will be without a jar in my kitchen for a long time.
I've got one in my fridge too.
I ordered my first jar like 4 months ago. I'm on my second one now, but like I don't know. I like what they did, and I like the edginess of their marketing, and I like their story. It seems legit. It doesn't seem like, you know, just somebody who just decided they wanted to make chili crisp. Like they have a story that ties it all together.
I love it. What about you, Jem?
Oh, I have just been reliving my childhood, and I've just for some reason gone heavy into ice creams, and I don't know what it is about it, but I guess it's just my comfort food. And I love Cool House ice creams, and they have one called chocolate malted cake, and literally I believe there's like, you know, it is the most incredible ice cream. My sister, who is runs 20 miles a day, doesn't eat a carbohydrate at all, she came over for Easter, and she tried it, and she ended up gobbling the whole container down. So yeah, I've really been into ice cream. Anything by Cool House right now, I'm totally loving, and by Jenny too. Her ice creams are phenomenal.
Okay, I have an ice cream for you, which
Okay.
was one of the ones I was gonna recommend. It's a plant-based ice cream, but it is the creamiest, most amazing thing, and it's ice cream sandwiches. Green Girl Bake Shop, unbelievable. And
I'm making
they
notes right
come
now.
in, oh my God, so good. That was gonna be one of mine anyway, but the ice cream sandwiches are just out of this
Isn't there
world.
nothing better than an ice cream sandwich? It's like,
Oh, nothing. It's like it's a
uh,
lost art, or it's
what's it
become
called? Green Girl what?
Green Girl Bake Shop.
Okay.
She's out of California. Unbelievably delicious, like creamy, creamy, creamy. The other thing I'm going to mention is it was another SKU. Both of that was a SKU company. This is another SKU company. It's called All Y'all Jerky, and it's a plant-based jerky, but they have these bacony bits that are so good. And you'll see on Instagram, people use their products and everything, but you can put them in soups and salads and everything, and they are so good. They are amazing. They went into like one HEB and now they're in like 100 because they kept selling out. I mean,
That's
I don't think the bag is big enough though. That's my problem.
So another point for
Bag.
packaging, make sure your
Yeah,
bag is really
exactly.
big if you're
Totally.
telling to Michelle.
The best complaint that they could ever receive.
Yeah, exactly.
And don't read the serving size on an ice cream container because it's really only one serving, no matter what.
Yeah. That's the only reason I'll eat some of those ones like a Halo Top, because it's like I can eat the whole thing. I just don't want to eat the whole thing. You know, like
Well, I can tell all of us are getting hungry because
yeah,
we're
oh my
eating
God,
out
so hungry.
fake
Yeah.
bacon bits, like plant-based bacon and ice cream and chili crisp. And like I've got inspirations for dinner already. But I want to say thank you again. Thank you to Michelle Breyer, Travis Ray, Jim Malone. It's been great chatting with you. And we super appreciate you taking the time to share your expertise and all of the knowledge. And loved having you here.
Thanks
Thank you so
for having
much.
me. Yeah.
All right, everyone. Thanks again for being with us. We will see you next time in about a month for our next installment of Food Prize University. And thanks again to our panelists, and thanks again for being with us. See you soon.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.